Hello everybody, and welcome back to day 30 of the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge. Today I wanted to talk about this drawing right now and how I am such a dummy, and I'm always forgetting that I can just look things up and use reference and use the unlimited tools at my disposal to make the drawing process so much fucking easier. So let me just talk about what I'm doing right now, which is I am finishing, or at least I finished inking the first page of my comic, The Forgotten Ones, but I paused the recording to look up reference stuff towards the end, and then continued drawing and totally forgot to press play, pretty sure, and so I don't think the actual finished page was shown, or at least it didn't record me inking it. Not really sure, but the thing is that I struggled with Tori's pose, the very last panel, her pose in where I struggled a lot with her proportions. And I struggled, I don't know, here's the thing, make your life so much easier by doing all of this struggling stuff in the sketching phase. I was a big old dummy, and I didn't actually do a refined sketch. It was basically just a more detailed thumbnail, especially when it came to the face. Last video, you saw me do the first half of this page, inking the first half, which was I did the house, and I did the mom. She's the one answering the door. So last video, you could see that I spent quite a lot of time with her face, not just her eyes and her nose, though I did struggle with those, but also just the planes of her face, her head, and especially her hair. I don't know, the part of her hair, her part and the crown of her head weirdly gave me trouble, and I kind of had the same problem with Tori, and also the second panel that the mom is in. Well, technically it's the first, but the second one that I did. It's the first panel where she's actually just opening the door. And I had so much trouble with the anatomy of it. I know how to draw them. I can draw them, and that's not the problem. It's not I need to practice just drawing my own characters. It's just that for some reason, when I was sketching, I didn't really think about using reference, and so the anatomy is just slightly off. And that wouldn't have been such a problem if I had then, when I started inking, using reference for the anatomy. But I didn't. I just have this problem where I completely forget about anything that is outside of the canvas I'm working on. I don't know why. I'll be struggling for hours, which I did in this, trying to get a pose correct. Drawing and erasing and drawing and erasing, tweaking, lasso tool, moving things around, banging my head on my tablet, being why is this not working out what is wrong with this pose, flipping the canvas over and over and over again, trying to figure out what it is about the pose that makes it look like her arm is broken. And I could have solved my problem very, very quickly within like 10 minutes of just Googling woman hand on hip. And that's what I did at the very end. And unfortunately, I don't think I got the recording of me drawing, finishing out her pose, but I did just end up, like, cropping her. The end crop of that panel is, more zoomed in than the sketch. Because I was just like, oh my fucking god, I am so done with this, because by the time that I was done struggling with her hand, after I came to my senses and looked up a reference photo, then I was like going on, I had to move on to her other arm, and my brain couldn't handle it. I was like, I've been doing this for hours. I've been, hitting my head against a brick wall of my own stupidity for hours that I was done. I couldn't handle even attempting her second arm. So I just cropped it at the waist. I, lasso tooled her and just made her bigger. And, yeah. It was an experience. So word to the wise, don't be me. Don't be an idiot. Use your references. If you're having trouble, you don't have to pull everything out of your head. I'm not gonna rehash the conversation around whether using reference is quote-unquote cheating. By the way, it's not. Because that's a discussion that's been had for years. Many more people who are much more eloquent than I have made entire videos on that very topic, so I'm not even gonna get into it. But basically, use reference. Use your tools. Don't make life harder just because you're trying to achieve some kind of impossible standard of human perfection by being able to create your entire comic without using any outside resources. Because it's at what point are you drawing the line on what's cheating? If you say using a reference photo is cheating, then is doing figure drawing practice and using what you've learned then cheating too? Since you're still using reference, but it's just reference that you already gathered beforehand. And if that's also cheating, then by that is any study of art also cheating? And if that's also cheating, then is using any kind of digital tool that allows you to quickly draw a square without having to do every single box, or making a straight line using a tool instead of getting it right by yourself, is that not also cheating too? Where do you draw the line if you think reference is cheating? Because it's once you start really thinking about it, the argument that using reference photos is cheating just kind of falls apart. There's a difference between using reference photos as a tool and using reference photos in a copying way. Obviously, pulling up reference photos for anatomy, and then another reference photo for clothes, and then another reference photo for like a face or an eye, those aren't cheating, like, at all. But doing the same thing for someone else's artwork still isn't cheating, because you're just pulling it up for reference on like one specific aspect of how that artist draws that thing that you like. Because, you know, nothing's original. No art style is born in a void. Everybody is surrounded by everybody else's artistic products from the very moment they step outside their house. Even within their house, if they have artwork hanging on their house, or hanging up on their walls that their parents bought, that's still someone else's artwork. And whether you consciously decide to use that painting hanging up on your wall or not, its color scheme or palette or shapes might still creep into the way that you do your art. It's impossible to not absorb the things we like about the media we consume. That's just, you know, human nature. We're very, very social creatures, and when we come across something new, it's instinct to pick out the things we like and adopt those things, whether they be permanent or even just like temporary for the moment, in order to socially blend into the new environment that we have come across, you know? It's just human nature to adopt those kinds of social norms of art. And so it kind of is stupid to not use reference. Because also, we're not machines. Unless you have an eidetic memory, meaning that you can remember every single minute detail of every single thing you've ever seen, it is impossible to draw something 100% accurately on the first try without looking at a reference, because our memories are inherently faulty, and it's not just that we forget details, but it's also that our brains actively work against us by making up details that were never there in the first place. We think, oh, I've seen a car 100 million times before. I drive my own car. And if you told me to draw my car, I would get the gist down, but I would not be able to do it well, because I've never actively looked at my car with the intent of reproducing it on paper, and that's what allows someone to draw well, is the intention of committing it to memory and taking in the details that a person who is not trying to reproduce it later would never really notice. Yeah. That's all I have to say. That's just what I struggled with when I was drawing this, was, you know, working against my own brain. At least eventually I remembered that I have the entire internet at my disposal. It took me probably like 2 minutes to find a reference photo of a woman's arm that had the same musculature as Tori, so that I could figure out how the hell an arm works when it's on someone's hand. I mean, no, when it's on someone's hip, when their hand is on their hip. Yeah. Just also, before I end this video, a quick note on the drawing that I'm doing right now, is that I went into drawing this with the intention of making it the final line art layer, but then after I was done, I was looking at it and I realized that I didn't like how thick the line art was. So I'm just going to once again treat this part that I'm doing right now as like a refined sketch layer. And that does make me sad, because as much as I just talked about using the tools at my disposal to make my life easier, I am intentionally not using any straight line tool to do any architecture in my comic, and even though that does mean that it takes me longer to do things like draw a panel that is literally just a house, which is technically all straight lines, I thought that the human error inherent in trying to draw a long straight line lended itself well to the vibe of my comic. I just like how it meshes much better with the organic lines of the characters, because I don't know if it's just because I haven't figured out how to do straight, like doing the line tool for architecture well when it comes to like drawing it as like background, like scenery and stuff. But every time I use the straight line tool to do the backgrounds for characters, I always feel like the characters and the background are so disconnected, because the characters are literally all organic, human-made lines, and then the background is all inorganic, or really just like inhumanly straight lines. So yeah. I just like how the house looks better with the organic lines that I've made myself. Yeah. Yep. Okay, yeah, that's all I have to say today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.